Jared, and I'm a car enthusiast. For as long as I can remember, I've loved cars. But there's a problem in the car community. Manuals are almost dead. I'm sure some of you know what clutch kicking or heel-toe downshifting is, but for those of you that don't, those are terms associated with a manual transmission car. Let me take a second to teach you a little bit so we can be on the same page. I'm going to tell you what a manual transmission actually is. This is the end of an era. When cars were first created, in a much simpler time, every single one of them was a manual. Back in 1894, Louis-René Panhard and Émile Levasseur, two French inventors and the founders of an automobile company called Panhard, developed the first modern manual transmission. Back then, it was only a 3-speed because cars were still very new and didn't need to handle crazy horsepower numbers like the cars of today do. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me backtrack a little. That 3-speed is still the basis for a lot of modern manual transmissions made today. Since this was such a new invention, it was pretty rough to drive and the gears would grind frequently. And here I go again, getting ahead of myself. You need to know how it works for me to keep going on about this. Let me explain how a manual transmission works. Sit tight, everybody. This is going to take a lot of explaining. Manual transmissions work based on gear ratios. In a manual trans, the input shaft, here, that comes from the engine, and the output shaft, here, that's the drive shaft of the car, that transfers power from the engine to the wheels, connect with a countershaft. On all three of these lie the gears. As the input shaft turns its gear, it's connected to a gear on the countershaft that, in turn, spins the gears on the output shaft. However, they're all spinning at different speeds. That's because they're not engaged yet. Now you're probably asking yourself, Jared, how do you engage a gear? And I'm so glad you asked, let me tell you. Only one gear can be spinning on the output shaft at a time, which is why you always select one gear at a time, and people say you're in gear, not in gears. On the output shaft are hubs in between two of the gears. Over top of these hubs are sleeves that slide back and forth between the two gears on either side of the hubs. Still with me? As the sleeves slide, they align with the teeth on the gear to anchor it to the hub and put the car into gear. But since the teeth on the sleeve and the teeth on the gears are different sizes, in between each gear and their respective sleeve lies a synchronizer. As you push in the clutch, the momentum of the car keeps you moving for a brief second while the power is cut between the engine and the driveline while you shift into the next gear. In other words, when the clutch is pressed in, the engine isn't giving any power to the wheels, so you're not accelerating. In doing this, you push the sleeve onto a synchronizer, which pushes up against a gear and perfectly aligns with that gear so it gets anchored to the output shaft and lets you keep accelerating and driving. This massive gear on the left of the screen is first. It's always the biggest gear. The gear moving it on the countershaft is the smallest and weakest, while first is the slowest and strongest gear. Next to that is second, third, and fourth gears. Fourth gear is also called direct drive because its ratio is 1:1. Let me show you the gears and the ratios for this particular transmission. First is 3.83 to 1. That means first gear can turn 1, 2, 3.8 times, while at the same time the gear on the output shaft turns once. Throw it into second. Second has a 2.062 to 1 ratio. Third gear, this is a 1.4 to 1 ratio, and like I said earlier, fourth has a ratio of 1:1. Those first three gears are high gear ratios. But what about fifth gear? Well, if we slide over a little bit, here it is. Fifth gear, in this case, is called overdrive. Fifth has a ratio of 0.8 to 1, which is a low gear ratio, and it makes the drive shaft turn the same way as the countershaft. Wait. I forgot to tell you about the clutch. Remember that third pedal under the driver's left foot? Well, the clutch pedal connects to the clutch, which contains a high friction disc and flywheel, and the shaft that goes to the transmission. When the disc is pressed against the flywheel, it catches and drives the shaft. In a lot of clutches, the flywheel is squeezed by springs that attach to a pressure disc, and that's anchored by a pressure plate. The plate is bolted onto the flywheel. On your everyday manual car, the clutch is probably going to have 3 springs. However, on higher performance cars, like race cars, you're probably going to have more springs to allow for a stronger and more effective connection between the disc and the flywheel because there's more torque flowing through the driveline. Now, stay with me here. This gets complicated. A diaphragm spring is connected to the pressure disc underneath the pressure plate. When you depress the clutch, it presses the diaphragm spring. Doing that pushes up on the diaphragm springs, which lifts the friction plate off of the flywheel. What you just did was disengage the power from the transmission shaft. So, when you let off the clutch, the friction disc re-engages and you have power again. But if you just dump the clutch or pull your foot off right away, bad things could happen. Instead of dumping the clutch, you need to ease off of it to slowly allow power to flow from the engine to the wheels again. So, to help with that, there's a plate with a hub inside of the clutch that has coil springs within it. That plate connects the shaft to the transmission. The springs absorb some of the kick from re-engaging the friction plate, so there's not too much stress on the rest of the car's drivetrain. Remember a second ago when I said you need to ease off the clutch? Well, if you ease off too slowly, you'll burn the clutch out. When the flywheel and friction plate rub too much, that's what you get, and it could be really costly, so be careful. Then why go through all that extra effort? Just let the car do the work, am I right? I'm sure a lot of people would agree with you, but there's a number that would disagree too.
I drive because when it comes down to it, it's a feel. A lot of things have happened in my life to where it's a good release. Being out here on the open road with only yourself, in control, you behind the wheel, open road, views like this. It's something that really, you can't get anywhere else. There's a lot of other things that people do for adrenaline rushes and escape, but this is what, moves me, and I also race my car as well, so building this relationship with it and being out here and being able to be one with the car.
I drive because I'm passionate about it. I drive because I'm in the moment. I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about right now. I drive because I just like to go fast, dude. I like to be in the moment, pushing yourself to do better. Such is life, You're always pushing yourself to do better, be a better person. it's awesome. I love the feel of competition, you know, whether it's me and the boys just doing some friendly stuff, or, you know, it's friendly, but it gets real sometimes, you know. They're haters because I'm faster, but whatever. You know, or if it's people you don't know, you know, and you're really racing, you know, that's the goal I'm trying to get to, be professional, and it's just fun. I enjoy it, and enjoy the camaraderie. See, I gave you the peace sign. Camaraderie, baby.
When I get in my car, it's just me, my car, and if I'm on the road with my friends, it's just like one solid movement. Just go in the canyons, crush it.
I drive because of my dad. He, ever since I can remember as a little kid, we always went for drives down to the beach or, you know, down to the coast. He always had fast cars. And without him, I wouldn't know how to drive the way I drive. You know, he taught me how to drive stick, taught me how to take corners, everything. I recently lost my dad, so it's about the only connection I have left with him, and you know, it's the only thing I can do to keep myself sane and, you know, just be out of my head. And, you know, when I'm out on the road, it just, whether it's a track or canyons or out with my boys, even when we're just cruising down the highway, it's just, you know, a way for me to escape the realities of life.
Ostensibly rendered obsolete by quick-shifting automatics and tightening fuel economy rules, our ability to dance the three-pedal shuffle may soon come to an end, and that pisses me off. Here's a thought that could stop the slide and maybe even help car companies generate some extra profit. Automakers should offer more manual transmissions, but charge for them. 20 grand extra for a 6-speed stick in the new Ford GT, for instance, would probably be more than enough per vehicle to cover the additional cost of emission certification and engineering work. So, just to reiterate one more time again, my advice is simple. Just offer the f***ing manual and charge more, and we can all be happy.